I can now say to my trainees when they start, whatever you want this to be, if you want this to be your weekend footy club and you want to wrestle a couple of matches, you can be. If you want to, go and wrestle for a living for some of the biggest companies in the world, the pathway's there. It's been forged. Like, Australians can do this. It's proven now that Australians can compete at the very, very top level. So when I first came in, I still had that sort of thing where there's no such thing as wrestling in Australia. Like, I didn't know that professional wrestling existed in Australia. I thought it happens in America. There used to be two companies in the world. There was WCW and WWE. WCW went away, so now there's literally just WWE. And I know there's Japanese wrestling, and I know there's Mexican wrestling, but that was about as much as I knew about it. Like, I was a huge WWE fan, and I watched everything that they had, and I went back and watched old WCW and that sort of stuff, and ECW and whatnot. But I was just kind of like, you know what? Because there mustn't be much of a very big scene in Australia, otherwise I would have heard about it. I'll go there. I'll do my first few months, because I'd heard that, you pay your $3,000, you get 3 months training. Okay, you are a wrestler. Off you go get your bookings. So I'll find out how to do the basics, and then, if I want to do it, I'll go off into America, and then I'll learn from there. But really, really quickly, I realized, holy shit, we got a world-class company here just at the independent level. Like, it blew me away the first time I went and saw APW. There was a cage being lowered from the ceiling, and there was pyro, and there was smoke machines, and like a real wrestling ring, because I'd seen, footage of backyarders with like mats taped on the ground and chairs as the corner posts and that sort of thing. And I was just absolutely blown away by the high quality and just the fact that how good the guys at the top of the card were. I'm like, man, you're going to have to dedicate your life just to get to there. Like, I never, ever thought I would get to EPW champion status, because these guys are incredible. They're absolutely phenomenal. And again, I was probably limiting myself too much based on, I thought I started too late and I was too small and that sort of stuff. And no one wants to see someone my size wrestle. Like, I'll be comedy relief at best. So I probably, my regret in wrestling, I think, is that I put too many limitations on myself too early. Like, I probably could have started putting my hand up for interstate bookings 2 or 3 years in, but I waited a really, really long time. So I started behind the curve. Like, it wasn't until I was probably close to 30 that I started actually really getting myself out and about, which in hindsight it's kind of, I think it's been detrimental to my career, because I think it's going pretty well now. Like, I'm starting to get a bit more recognition. I'm starting to get those in-state bookings and whatnot, but I'm 37. So, they say that wrestlers peak in their mid-30s, and maybe I'm hoping not, but maybe I'm on that downward slope now. And I'm really hoping that maybe starting later means that my peak will be late as well. So I'd like to think that I haven't peaked yet. And I like to think that I can do this for a lot longer still to go.
See, I reckon like wrestlers probably peak at around 40, like 40 and 40, 45 with a lot of them. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think at that stage of being a performer, you really sort of start to get it. And you look at when Bubba Ray Dudley was in TNA and went and did that main event run as Bully Ray.
Yeah.
I mean, the level of performer he was at there compared to where he was at 10 years prior, you compare matches or just promos and stuff like that, and it's just like different levels of performer that you can see there. And I think that at that stage, he was probably at his peak, and he was probably like 43.
I think you might be right, actually, because I think maybe 20 years ago, 35 was the peak, because the schedules that they wrestled and the extracurricular activities that they took part in would just wear their body down by the time they got to mid-30s. Like, Stone Cold retired before he was even 40. Like, it just was injuries and that sort of stuff. Whereas now, you're probably right. Like, the guys are a lot kinder to their bodies. They're a lot more health conscious. They're a lot better with their rehab and recovery and that sort of stuff. So now guys are having longer careers. And even if I just look at how I am physically as a 37-year-old compared to my dad when